Okay, great. Thank you so much for catching me. I'll try again, pause, reset, and pretend like we're starting over. In this session, we're going to start a new code kata, working on an exercise called the expense report. And we're going to do this in Swift. And this means there's legacy code without tests. We're going to add tests to it, and then make the code better. Hello, I am a coach and trainer with Industrial Logic. My name is John Reed. At Industrial Logic, we help software companies around the world. You can think of like training as like you go through our material, and coaching as we go through your material. That's a rough way to think about it. And work with your teams and help folks get better. So thank you for joining, and thanks Mudshark for catching me, and other folks on whether or not you could hear me. Hello Garbob, and first time chatter Bruno Alves, I'm guessing. Hey. And Bruno, you bought this book. You meaning this book? My book, iOS Unit Testing by Example. That's great. I love to hear that. I know it's a half decent book when I refer to it. Like I open it up to look things up. That's how it works. My brain, I get it out of my head, and it goes into other forms, and so I don't remember anything. I'm glad you like it. And, feel free to hit me up if you have any, as you go through the book, if you have any questions or problems you face, or things that are like, well, this is kind of dated. What do you do now, John? Do send me a note. You can find me along these places. There we go. Okay, so we got 5 folks here. I'm digging it. And last time, let me share my screen. Last time, so this is my kind of collection of Swift code katas. There are many, many, many more than I list. But we were going through some legacy katas, and we'd gone through the Gilded Rose. We've just finished up trip service, and I had said, let's start the baby steps timer, like an iOS app, so dealing with app-like stuff. But I found I was missing a good one, and that's the expense report. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take a left turn, and we're going to start the expense report. Hello, Kaleriosun. I have a question. Does the book have something related to testing reactive code? No, it does not. My book does not have anything in there about reactive code, but I think it will still help anyone who wants to learn how to write good tests. And frankly, I don't know. Reactive code doesn't seem that. I know. I was about to say it doesn't seem that different. Of course, it is different. It's a different paradigm, but the way you think about testing things is still the same. Namely, I want to set things up in a certain state, and I want to poke it and see what happens. And in reactive code, that pretty much means like setting up a data source, not with real data, but with, say, a stream of two sets of data, or maybe one, or maybe none. One often. Most of the tests I write for reactive code will just say, let's just have one thing in the data stream. Boom, go. And that's how I do it. So I hope that helps. The expense report Let's go there. This is functioning code that outputs an expense report, but it has no unit tests. Like the Gilded Rose, the challenge is to add a new feature. The code in this exercise isn't as obviously horrible as the Gilded Rose. It looks pretty normal, so it's full of common code smells you may not detect at first glance, and I think this could be fun. Let's go. I have set up a project. Here's our tests. Look at that. Nothing. It's got nothing except a blank test. Did I do this? Mudshark, have I already done the expense report? If I have, okay. I mean, let's run this and just make sure I've got everything set up right. There it goes. Okay, there's our one silly test that does nothing. Yeah, so the expense report, let me hide some stuff here. Actually, let's go to the README. And this is one of the nice features. Am I still going to talk about app code and show off its features? Hell yeah. Give me something better. If this is going to go away at the end of this year and then limp along for another few months, that still gives me a year of using this, and it's still the best tool. So for example, what I did just now was you're probably used to reading Markdown just in plain old Markdown, but why not go to the preview? The process. Here. The goal is to support a new feature, add lunch, with an expense limit of $2,000. We'll call that 2,000 cents, $20. And it's got a good breakdown of a way to do that. But before I get there, this has to be, of all the code katas, the one where I know the guy who maintains this, I think he has a hobby of collecting languages. So you can do it in Amiga Basic if you want. Look at a ridiculous number of languages that this is in. Here's the SQL version. Here's an XSLT version. Really? You can do it in Z shell. Whatever. Yeah. It's just, sorry, I'm getting nostalgic here for some things. Of course, there's stuff there are most of these I've never touched, these languages. But anyway, one, read the code to understand what it does and how it works. So I'd like to follow this process because I mean, the whole point of doing code katas is deliberate practice. I am doing deliberate practice in front of you with your help and input to improve my craft, and hopefully you might learn a trick or two. So read the code. Here we go. Let's go there. And it replaced it. Darn it. That's not what I want. Excuse me for a second. There's some tab behavior that I think has changed. Nice thing is I can just look up tabs. Tab behavior. I do not want the preview tab. That just confuses me. I just want regular tabs. Okay. Expense report. So let's see. What do we have? We've got breakfast, dinner, and car rental. No lunch. We have an expense, which is the type of expense, and an amount as an integer. Okay, that's a code smell right there, but maybe that's not a big one. Why is integer a code smell? Because it's not like currency or Yeah. Pennies or monetary value or something. It's just an integer. Anyway, let's go on. All right, so what have we got? We've got a class that I think has nothing but a single function print report. It takes an array of expenses and it prints straight to the console. Let's see if we can read it. Meal expenses starts at 0 and a total. So there's meal expenses and total are split out for some reason. It puts, it writes out like, I think this is going to produce a bunch of stuff as a bunch of print statements. And then it loops, here's the loop, over the expenses and does stuff. Let's, why can't I collapse this? Ooh, I think there is an app code bug. I think I may file an app code bug because, strange thing for app code being on death's door is that a bug I reported recently was like went into progress. Like I could see a changed status. They're still working on it? Why? Maybe the developers. I bet the poor developers at JetBrains, they can't help it that the money people at the top have said this is a waste of money, and the poor developers love it. Anyway, so I thought I could collapse this with the collapse thing here, but it seems to be not picking up these braces. Anyway, it loops over all the expenses and does stuff and then prints out some totals. Okay, and so what does it do for each expense? It decides whether it's a meal expense or not. If it's dinner or breakfast and we don't have lunch, it adds the amount to the meal expenses separate from the total. It prints a name, and then it does, ooh. Now, I laugh and I chuckle because I'm getting more and more sensitized to code smells by working with a crack team of programmers at Industrial Logic as we develop an app. It's not in Swift, but by working together with others who are really good, I'm learning to become more and more sensitive to code smells. That in most code would this would totally pass PR, I think. I've seen enough bad code out there to know that this would pass PR, but it does a whole bunch of stuff to determine something about whether this is a meal over expenses marker. And then it prints some stuff out in totals. Okay. So I think we have a pretty good idea. I have a pretty good idea of what it does. Let's go back to the README. Read the code and check for design and code smells. Make a list of all code and design smells that you find. I don't know where I'm going to keep such a list. And yet it might be good. It might be good. So help me out. This is... Oh, the indentation is out of whack. Thank you. This should be the very first thing that we do with code is reformat it. I hadn't even noticed that the indentation was out of whack. I still don't quite see it. I'm sure it is. Oh, yeah, well, okay. So, since this is legacy code, meaning we do not change its behavior until the very end when we tack in the new behavior, let's use TCR. Let us turn off the change size watchdog and turn on test and commit or revert. On past test, it will commit using the last commit. That seems good. And the tests, of course, do nothing right now. But I should be able to take this whole thing and format it. Oh. No, hang on. How about Swift format? You know, I don't think the indentation is out of whack. Chuck, I think you're just not used to Swift style indentation. Like this is normal. I just used Swift format. Oh, what did it do? It made one small change. It removed the parentheses. Yeah, this is pretty normal. Actually, sorry, this dates back. I say sorry as if it were my idea. This dates back to C, because cases were like go-to statements. So if that offends you, I'm sorry. But let me now. I've done a reformatting to say it got rid of unnecessary parentheses. So that seems like something worth committing. And of course it commits, hang on a second. It made a commit, but let me change this message there. Okay, now we're set up for TCR. That is a good thing to do anytime you approach new code, is just sort of reformat. In fact, let me change this. I'll just say I use Swift format because I haven't really done TCR because we don't really have tests yet. Smells. What smells do we have? Well, here's a Swift specific smell. This is an easy one because I think most Swift folks will recognize that you don't need to take a case and say, what is its name? You can actually do that, assign that inside of the enum itself. So that's an example of a Swift specific code smell, but I'm afraid that most times people talk about smells, they are talking about language specific things. And there's a whole variety of code smells here that are not language specific. For example, it's printing. This code generally is doing too much. It is calculating an expense report, it is formatting an expense report, and it is writing that expense report out directly to the console. Those are different things, and it has mixed those different things together. The single responsibility principle, which a lot of people misunderstand. I've got an article on it. Hello, my face. Single responsibility. Yep. Hey, Jitter Ted. Welcome to the legend who got me live coding. Yeah, that was you, my friend. So, great to have you. So, this single responsibility is about like is is very much separation of concerns is probably a better way to think of it. Solid made single responsibility popular because it was easy to remember, and even that was like an accident. They had come up with the their principles and then sort of rearranged it and realized that it spelled solid if you rearranged it. But separation of concerns is important because, and think of it in single responsibility principles. The single responsibility principle says that code should change for one reason, meaning like one concern. What if we need to add a new expense type, lunch. That should be something we do around like how expenses are managed. That shouldn't be separate from how is reporting done, how is the reporting formatted, and that should in turn be separate from where does it go in terms of I/O. It's dumping straight out to the log, to the console. Here's one. It is directly using the current date. Woo! Lots of code does this. It makes it hard to test. It is deciding. Here's a conditional that is deciding whether or not something is a meal expense and taking an action. Like, ew. If you look at where are the places we need to change if we add lunch, well, we have to change it here. We have to change it here. We have to change it here. Oh, we have to change it here. So this is a smell. That's what do we call it? Shotgun surgery. Where in order to make to add a single type lunch, we've got to change it in 4 places. Woo! At least 4. That's not great. Hello. Nona Noah. Wait. I think I know you. Mr. Noah, welcome. Good to have you. Decent crowd today. So now I haven't been making a list of code smells, but yeah, I thought I recognized your name. Ooh, Jitter Ted. Shotgun surgery implies that you're missing a domain concept. And this is one of the big things about refactoring and design and improving the design is what we want is the domain captured in things that represent the domain well. And doing this is work. It's thinking about like what are the concepts involved, and not just like generally like in a platonic manner, because you don't write code to solve the world. You write code for a very specific purpose, and it's got to support that, and hopefully that only, but it does it well. I don't know. I'm not doing a good job of explaining domain concepts, but this gets into how it gets into naming because John Fazaro gave a Friday talk about he's one of my coworkers at Industrial Logic, and he was talking about Android code, but it applies everywhere, where he said that code tends to get lumped together because we struggle with naming. And until we can come up with a name, it's hard to figure out, like, it's hard to see what is the thing. And because we struggle with that, naming is hard. People tend not to do that. And because you tend not to do that, code tends to be a mishmash of stuff that is all lumped together with mixing concerns. And hello, ULSC. I'm trying to remember all your handles. It's been a while. Sometimes extracting and grouping the code into a class or other container first is easier than coming up with a name first. Very true. Hey, Swiggy. This gets us into the progression of naming, where you start just with a silly name. These are Arlo's sort of his flow of naming is just use a nonsense name, because at least it's a name, and then you can make it better over time. Arlo's naming is a process. Thank you. Hey, Maverick lives here. Thanks to TDD and refactoring, you can make it. Oh, thanks to TDD and refactoring, you can make a better name at any time. Bingo. I have a feeling that this session is not going to include any coding at all. Maybe we're just going to talk about smells. Maybe not. We'll see. For those of you who don't come around that often, I try to limit these sessions to an hour so that I can get on with my life and you can get on with your life, because hopefully we all have better things to do than watch me code. Let's see here. So this, look at this. This is a conditional. Here's the conditional. It's either going to be X or not, or a space, and all of this is there. That's a complex conditional. Like, we can't just scan it and look at it and know what it's doing. We have to read it. So the whole process of naming is attaching semantic knowledge so that as an abstraction, so that we don't have to get into the details. We can read the code to understand what it does. I do see that sometimes my variables and methods are not well named. I found myself completely confused by naming that did the opposite of what I thought of. And of course, that's, Ted points out that we want things to be understandable. Put it in a box, write a label on it, and forget the details of its contents for now. I like that a lot. I feel like the thing that is, maybe people don't get, you folks seem to get, about programming, is that it is less about language tinkering and more about creating concepts to solve your problem. Put it in a box. Write a label on it. You can always change your name. As I work during the day on this project with my other folks at Industrial Logic, we're doing client work. That's in addition to coaching and training. We were hired to ship this code. So that's another thing we do. But this means that the only people we have to blame for this code is mostly ourselves, because except for the outer boundary of the data that comes in, we've written everything. And sometimes we'll come upon things and it's like, what the heck is this even? And rather than skipping over it and saying, we've got to stay on the task that we're doing, it's like, no, no, no. Improve it right now. We are here. Let's make it more understandable. We joke about refactor Fridays because that's a term that gets thrown around a lot at a lot of companies. It's like, when can you refactor? On Friday. That's when you can refactor. We are refactoring all the time because that's how we roll. That's how TDD works. It's the second step. First step is get to green, even with this, the most straightforward, simplest, dumbest, sometimes ugliest code you can do. As long as it's green, it's good. And then clean it up. Continuous refactoring, which is continuous design, because refactoring is a process of discovering the design. Whoa, great. Love. I'm having to catch up. The better naming evolves just like the code. Our ideas about what it is change. And this is what technical debt is. It's a shame that the term has become something else. But I like the original definition, which is that we wrote the best code we could at the time, but now we've learned more. And the technical debt is the difference between, well, it's saying that the code no longer expresses our latest understanding. And it's the difference, sort of the delta is the technical debt that we need to pay off. Anyway, once I put the code under test so that I can use refactoring, then I don't stress over the perfect name. I just keep renaming to a better name. You know what? I should pull up Arlo's naming. What is it? Arlo's naming is a process. Here we go. Let's see. This is the deep down and dirty. Wow. Well, that's lovely. There must be. Okay. Do I dare do an image thing? I think I dare. Here it is. The seven stages of naming. The name is missing. Sorry about the kind of low res things. The name is missing. So a nonsense name is better than a missing name. An honest name is better than a nonsense name. An honest and complete name is better than an honest name. A name where it communicates sort of that it does something and it does the right thing is better. Oh. Sorry, Ted. You got timed out, and that isn't just because you're not in my you're not among my regulars. There we go. Thank you. Okay. So I'll make sure that that's in there. Sorry about that, Ted. Writing test Tuesdays. Oh, man, you guys crack me up. Yeah. So Get to obvious nonsense, get to honest, get to completely honest, like spell out everything it does, and start to get to the right thing, and then start to reveal intention until you get to what is the domain abstraction. This is such a powerful, powerful idea about naming. So that was a great digression. This is conditional complexity, where it's like, that's why we got into naming. It's like, what is it doing? It should tell us in a name what it's doing. But right now you have to go and see, dinner is over. Okay, it's anything over $50. Breakfast is $10, and we're supposed to have a lunch limit of $20. So, what other code smells are, that's a lot. In a very few, and 40 lines of code, we got a whole bunch of smells. Step one is not to begin improving this code. Step one is, well, in a way, we did step 0, which is reformat it, which cleaned up, got rid of one non-idiomatic thing, which was too many parentheses. Meal over expense. Oh, meal is over the expense limit. Geesh. I'm like, I was trying to picture like a meal on top of an expense. Yeah, it didn't do it. So we can start to tackle this. Let's see. Maybe we can. Maybe we can bring this under test. Now, to bring this under test, the easiest way to do this would be with approval tests, because it's like the ideal scenario. I mean, I don't need to tell you, maybe if you know what approval tests are. Okay, back up, John. For those who don't know what approval tests are, it's a type of assertion where the assertion is captured in a file. What the expected value is captured in a file, and that's really, really useful for things where it gets complicated, because you can tell where it's different with a diff. And I've been involved with the Swift version of this. So you can see, like, it uses whatever diff tool you have. It's characterization testing, it's golden master testing, except it's approvals has this specific flow of, let's bring up the diff tool to let you decide if this change is good or not. So it is ideally suited to legacy code, because with a characterization test, you just want to say, call it with some junk and, hey, spit some stuff out, and whatever it does is what I want it to continue to do. It's not an API mock. It is, you may need that, but it is very much about just capturing the output and saying, is this the output you want or not? You, the human, decide. But it brings the power of diff tools. It does other good stuff besides that, but that's the basic roots of it. I will show you. Let's start without the diff tool. So let us begin. Let's see. I don't think I can do this. It doesn't have a shortcut to go to the tests. All right. So test print report. Let us begin. The very first thing we need to do is create the thing. Sometimes this can be tricky. I think we need to give it a list of Oh no, expense report itself takes nothing. Okay, what you do. When you first use the approval test, they are capturing the existing output as is for the legacy code. Yep. I've been procrastinating on putting characterization tests around a piece of Java 1.7 code. That's very coupled to two different databases. um, characterization tests are really great as long as they're not super fragile. The type of characterization test that is most familiar to iOS developers is the snapshot test. This is different from what like JavaScript folks think of as snapshot tests. I'm saying snapshot like the image, like capture the actual rendered layout of a view. And that's that's at an extreme level. So is the JavaScript style of saying dump out the entire object graph of like this thing. It's like, what if it's filled with things that you don't care about? So approval tests lets you tune it so that you can have a test that is hopefully not fragile. But anyway, step one, we're not using approvals yet. Step one is, can I make it? Can I instantiate the thing? Now, I should be able to instantiate the thing. So let me run tests, and if it runs, it'll commit because I'm using TCR. It already committed, John. So let me change this message to TCR. Now it'll just keep reusing the TCR message. So that passes. This can be tricky because sometimes just creating the thing is hard because this doesn't have any dependencies, but you can imagine, well, if you work with real code at all, where it's like, okay, to construct this thing, it needs like half a dozen or a dozen things that I need to make. Ugh, that's a smell on its own. So it's able to construct it and it doesn't die. So let me stick this in a variable. This won't die either. And that just committed. And now I should be able to say print report with expenses, and we'll start with empty. And I expect this will actually spit something out in the log, in the console. Let's see. There it is. So this is not a useful test yet. It is just making sure that we can do this without it dying or without it going out and hitting a database or making it a network call. So here it is. Testing. No, that's it. Expense report. Ooh, there's our time with meal expenses and total expenses 0. Not very interesting, but it's a start. Now, I should be able to capture this. Oh, but you'll soon see the problem. And say, well, how do I capture this? Step 1. This is printing straight out. The test has no ability to access what got printed. So having done that, I need some separation. Any hints on how I could get started with simulating database inputs? Is it sensible to start with a backup of the real database? Oh, for characterization testing? Ooh. You hear my groan there because it reminds me of times when I have set up a test instance of a database to run tests on, and it's painful. It's no fun. It might help you get started, but I would move away from it as soon as possible. What you ideally want is to carve out anything it in outside of since Ted is here in the hexagon of concerns of you want like the database stuff to come through the inputs outside of your core stuff. So box that off as soon as you can. Create an abstraction so that a layer between the code and the database. And ideally, you can do this without tests by using automated refactoring tools. When that's not possible, then you have to, like if you make a change and it's not automated, you can go ahead with it, but you need to check it, and you need to check it manually. So it's still test-driven development. It's just not automated. Does that make sense? So like if you take a database thing and say, it's going to make this call and get this this data back, and we create a separation, whoop, the act of doing that separation needs to be tested. And so you might run the app for real and make sure, is everything still talking? So that's an example of how test-driven development isn't all automated. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of approaching code. Of course, ideally, we want fast tests. So, yeah, no. It would be Postman is a good way to do this with a mock API call. Database is another thing. It's right. All right. So not at all. This is you did not derail me. This is the fun rambling and exploration, and it's great to have all this chatter today. So this code is untestable. I mean, unless you've got some sneaky way of saying capture what goes to print, what goes out to the console, the test has no way of seeing it. So we're going to have to create a separation, and let's see if we can't do this automatically. I don't know if we can. Print, here's a print statement, here's a print statement, here's a print statement, and here's a print statement. And how to do this? Ooh, mud shark. The trick with legacy code is the code is untestable. We want the code tested so that we can make changes. But the code is right now untestable. And in order to make it testable, we need to make changes. So this is Michael Feather's book, Working Effectively with Legacy Code. What do you do? And you want to try to avoid disturbing the original code as much as possible, like hands-off, automated changes or changes that are like known safe. Java, you can capture the console output. Wow. Yeah. Swift, you cannot. However, I think Mudshark's given us a great idea, which is to say, as long as print takes a single string here, and it's not like printing a bunch of var args. Actually, even if it were taking var args, we could use it, but then I wouldn't be as sure that it was doing it correctly. But let us see if we can't define a print method. And let me see if I can remember Swift. print, I don't know, line. Where this is going to call, okay, I need to know, this is these are now referring to this. I've just broken the code. But if I can have this forward to the code, what exactly is this? Where is it? So maybe it's in swift.print. I think that preserves it. So this is calling these I've changed the behavior of the print statements to say call swift.print. Now that is a change, and I want to make sure it still does it. And if it did it, I will see it in the console output. So I'm confident in that change. That was somewhat risky, but not entirely risky. Right? It bottled up all these things that I was like a little scared to do. What do I do here? Do I extract a closure? Hello, Tukes. Welcome back. We're about at the end of this session, but let's see. Now I have a print method, and now I should be able to create a testable subclass of expense report. Let's do that. So let's make a testable expense report. Let's make it a class that overrides expense report. So that's a thing, and let us use it in our tests. Okay? So far, it's just going to keep spitting out to the console. But now I should be able to override print. And instead of calling superprint, AppCode's a little drunk about the errors. Instead of doing this, we want to capture this. Say, I want to append this to lines, something like that. Let's do it like this. I was about to fall into an old habit, a bad habit of collecting the lines by starting with saying, oh, I should make a property and so forth. And that's backwards. I should start from the point of call. And I think it makes sense to say, since they come in as single strings, instead of appending them all together, let's keep them as separate lines. If we want them to join them, we can. But this lets me check the point of call to say, does this make sense? To append the line to some array of lines. And now I can create this as a property. And it will be a var property. Hey! I think this is my first time to see this. This was a feature request I made. That before, I don't think it was prompting. Or maybe that was only in the initializer. Anyway, I'm happy that it can do that. It does not infer the type correctly, which is unfortunate. So I'll just say it's going to start as empty. Now this will no longer output that stuff here. But now we should be able to come up with something testable. And this is where we'll finish to say the expense report lines. Hello. It's there. I know it's there. Let's see. How do I want to do this? Do I want to join them? Do I want to print them? Oh, thank you. That's why. All right. Make it file private? No, no need. Just go like that. Thank you. That's why it was red. Uli, good to have you. I'm going to run tests here. Even though this does nothing, just because I want it to save it in my commits. You look at the number of commits I've made. It's not a lot yet. We're just starting to pick up speed. But if I say this should be equal to nothing, this will fail and it will revert, but we should see like some output. It didn't even run. Oh. There it reverted because the test failed, but here we can see here's a line. Right? Here's one string. Here's another string. Oh, I wouldn't if I were doing TCR on a team, how would that work? I would probably take all these, because it doesn't lead to good history, and I might squash them, yeah, to express what it is I've done at the point when I want to, when I actually want to push. The other way to do it is just to, well, it could prompt me every time. That's open the commit dialog. I get tired of that. But that's the other way to do it. It would be to say, every time it's ready to commit, prompt me for the message. I just don't feel like doing that. Whoops. Yeah, I just don't feel like doing that for these exercises. So yes, that date is going to be a problem, and we're going to have to extract that to make it testable. That is where we will continue next time. Because this seems like a good place. It went in a direction I wasn't expecting. Yeah, I wouldn't want to, I think I'd be cautious of doing an amend. On the other hand, it only does that if it passes. So that's why it has these choices. And this is where if I have to use Xcode, then I'm going to have to come up with some other solutions to continue to use TCR. Probably a shell-based thing, which has been awkward because running tests from the command line is oddly slow. You're just being cheeky. Yeah. Okay. This seems like a good point to stop. It's been an hour of good fun, a lot of conversation. I've had so much fun. We will continue this next week. I'm pretty sure I'm not going anywhere next week. And that is all she wrote. Oh, wait. For those, I need to add the usual blather. Ted, thank you for so much for coming by. Swiggy and everyone. Mudshark as always. Mr. Noah. Maverick. Oh, so many of you. This has been great. I need to say, for those of you who are watching this after the fact, if you're watching on Twitch, give me a follow, right? And consider subscribing if you want to support it. If you're watching on YouTube and you've made it this far, well then it must have been half decent. Give it a like and whatever it is, terminology. Is it subscribe? Is it follow? I don't know. Do the things, train the robots. Be good, and I will see you next week.